Hey y'all, welcome back to Race and Rights. Now before we get into the lecture, I have a couple of announcements. This is the only page I have. So if you get a follow or a message from this imposter, please report the page. Next, you didn't think you weren't getting a test, did you? Yes, your final exam is coming up. More info will be sent out to enrolled students, but I have a very special treat for you. I'll be collaborating with Pyramid Art and Books, a Black-owned bookstore out of Arkansas, to gift 2 free books to the student who gets the highest grade on the final. So if you need to catch up, I suggest you do that before next week. We are officially at the second to last class in this series, and today we're talking about the battle over who belongs, who gets protected, and what's at stake in this next chapter of American history. So let's start where it all began, with the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 in the shadow of the Civil War and slavery. Its purpose was clear: to ensure that Black Americans, especially formerly enslaved people, were recognized as full citizens of the United States. The first line is powerful. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. That clause, Birthright Citizenship, was a direct rejection of the Supreme Court's decision in Dred Scott v. Sanford, where the court said that Black people could never be citizens. The 14th Amendment was Congress saying, no, if you're born here, you belong here. But now, more than 150 years later, that right is under attack again. In recent years, some politicians, including now President Donald Trump, have pushed the idea of ending birthright citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants. They argue that the U.S. should not have to grant automatic citizenship to so-called anchor babies, a term rooted in xenophobia and fear. Now, here's the problem. The Supreme Court has already ruled on this. In United States v. Wong Kim Ark, the court confirmed that a child born in the U.S., even to non-citizen parents, is a citizen. That's been the law of the land for over a century. But the current political climate shows us that even established rights can be reinterpreted or revoked when the wrong people gain power. That brings us to the 2024 election, which wasn't just about candidates. It was about culture, identity, and control. We saw new levels of voter suppression tactics, closed polling places in predominantly Black neighborhoods, aggressive voter roll purges, laws targeting mail-in voting and same-day registration. Now, these aren't accidents. These are strategies. And now let's talk about redistricting. Across several states, courts found that district maps were intentionally drawn to weaken Black voting power. In Alabama, Louisiana, and Georgia, just to name a few, maps were challenged because they diluted the voting strength of Black communities. Even where Black voters turned out in strong numbers, their power was blunted before they ever walked into a polling place. But despite the odds, we also saw Black candidates, Latino organizers, and youth coalitions mobilizing like never before. Communities showed up even when the system was stacked against them. Now, let's get into the racial dynamics of the presidential race itself. Both campaigns leaned heavily into identity politics, but in different ways. On one side, you had a platform rooted in restoring law and order, traditional values, and protecting American heritage. These are phrases that, while not explicitly racial, were coded appeals to whiteness, to fear of demographic change, to backlash against Black Lives Matter, and to resentment over so-called woke culture. On the other side, the Democratic campaign tried to emphasize inclusion, speaking directly to communities of color about issues like student debt relief, reproductive rights, voting rights, and criminal justice reform. But enthusiasm among Black voters, particularly younger Black voters, was more complicated this time around. Many felt let down by unfulfilled promises from the last administration. That disillusionment mattered. In places like Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Black voter turnout dipped slightly, not because people didn't care, but because they're tired of being courted every 4 years and forgotten in between. And yet, even with that fatigue, it was Black voters, especially Black women, who once again proved decisive in key swing states, not because they were energized by a candidate, but because they understood the stakes. We also saw increased efforts by conservative influencers to target Black men specifically, using messages around masculinity, economic freedom, and skepticism of the Democratic Party. Some of it resonated, not enough to swing the majority, but enough to shift the narrative. This election revealed a truth that we've always known. Race isn't just part of American politics. It is American politics. And as the country becomes more diverse, the backlash becomes more and more aggressive. The 2024 election wasn't just a battle over policy. It was a fight over identity, memory, and the heart of American democracy. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Trump administration 2.0, and the coordinated attack on DEI. Since returning to power, Trump and his allies have wasted no time targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across federal agencies, higher education, and even corporate America. Executive orders are being drafted to ban DEI offices in government. Conservative lawmakers are proposing funding cuts to universities that promote racial equity, and companies are being threatened with lawsuits for having diverse hiring initiatives. Now, make no mistake, this isn't just politics. politics. This is a full-blown ideological war against any effort to recognize or repair systemic injustice. DEI is being painted as un-American, woke, or even discriminatory against white people. And that framing is working, especially with voters who feel threatened by changing demographics and social progress. But let's remember what DEI is really about. It's about access. It's about belonging. It's about making sure that opportunity isn't reserved for the privileged few. If the 14th Amendment promises equal protection under the law, then DEI is simply one way to get closer to that promise. So when they attack DEI, they're not just targeting programs, they're targeting the very idea that America should be fair. Here's what we need to hold on to. The Constitution is only as strong as our commitment to uphold it. Birthright citizenship, equal protection, due process. These aren't just legal terms, they're lifelines for communities who've been historically excluded. And in a political moment where rights are being rolled back in real time, we have to stay engaged, not just for ourselves, but for the next generation. Because race and rights has never just been about history. It's about the future we're building and who gets to belong in it. I'll see you in our last class.